What's going on, people? Welcome to our March Madness Off the Bull Network show. A lot of craziness going on. I'm joined by my guy Walker Bailey. Walker, a lot of wildness is going on in the first weekend of March Madness. What's going on, man?
Yeah, lots of crazy stuff. It's been great. I've watched every game. I've got Xavier Pitt on in the background here. Yeah, but watched every game. Been able to catch everything. If you've been following me on social media all year, we bet Texas TCU at the start of the year to win the national title, and both dogs are still hunting. Um, and as that's the case, we're kind of pulling for those guys down the stretch. So big one tonight for the Frogs. But yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that's kind of where we're at now.
we got TCU, Gonzaga tonight. A lot of good games as we were currently recording. We have Xavier taking on Pitt. Pitt is kind of some people thought they would lose the play-in game, and they're playing for a shot to get into Sweet 16 right now. So big thing, but obviously the big thing. Let's get right into it. Purdue, 16 seed, losing to a 16 seed, second time ever. One has lost to a 16 seed. Let's just get why, how, what happened to Purdue? Why did they lose?
So, I mean, I think for one, listen, I think Jay Billis said it best. We obviously have to give credit to Fairleigh Dickinson, but we can
Of
also
course,
outright say that Purdue sucked. Like they sucked. That's what he said, and that's kind of I think verbatim what he said.
it's that
Uh,
simple. Yep. It
yeah,
really is.
and I think, and we talked a little bit before the show, but I just think Purdue's young guards were just not ready for the tournament, and obviously, like you didn't think they'd get eaten up by Fairleigh Dickinson's guards, but I mean, they just weren't ready. And I thought too, if you follow me on Twitter, I've been tweeting this all year. I wanted to see a team play Purdue that would just press them for 40 minutes. And the committee, as devilish as they are, gave Purdue the 16 seed, who happened to have the highest press rate in the entire country. And it ate them up.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't get into their offense because the ball pressure was so much. They couldn't get into their offense. I thought FDU going into a zone at one point, just mixing things up and keeping them off balance was smart. Not just showing them the same thing over and over and over again. I thought Tobin Anderson managed the game really well, all things considered. Um, but Purdue just couldn't handle ball pressure, and they got eaten up by a team whose guards were pretty good on a night where they had to be pretty good.
Yeah,
I don't want to go over the like off the rails and be like, oh, FDU's guards were elite, because FDU's guards are going to get tore up tonight.
Oh yeah, for sure. But like you said, Braden Smith, Richard Laura, just they did it. They look like freshmen.
Yeah,
We look like freshmen. I think because we assumed because they play for Purdue and all that they would be able to overcome it. But Fairleigh Dickinson, they just look a lot more athletic too. And that's the thing with Purdue is they don't have athletes on their team. And you saw how they attacked ZD. Like they just made sure he just had nowhere to move. Like they made it difficult for him to get the 21 points and all that. And you just saw how they, with a lot of their zones and all that, like they just crap. And I forgot who said this, but they were like, Purdue hasn't seen a team do this to them all year.
I know.
And they just weren't ready for that. And when they just looked like they were shell shocked, like we don't know how to adjust to this. And that was very shocking.
Well, and it
Very,
was I
very
think a
shocking.
lot too. The scouting report kind of went out the window. Like the guy who hit the dagger from three, which was like a 29% 3-point shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just kind of was one of those games where, as this tournament does, just kind of magical things happened, and the scouting report went out the window. And as we got later into the game, Fairleigh Dickinson or whatever had the lead at the half, but Purdue's only down one. Probably goes in and it's like, all right, whatever. Like they punched us for a half. I'm sure we'll come out, go on a run, and put it away. But it just never came. Like you kept waiting on the kill shot, like the 12-0 run or the 10-0 run. You just kept waiting on that run to come.
Mm-hmm.
Where Lawyer hits a three, maybe Edie gets a couple dunks, and then FDU calls timeout, and the game's just over. Like you just know then that it's not going to happen.
They didn't attack the basket really, too.
And I'll say this, like it was very different from the UMBC game because FDU had a real game pressure to deal with. UMBC never really did. Like UMBC just worked them from the jump and beat them and like blew them out.
Yeah.
FDU had real game pressure to deal with. That like Tobin Anderson had to make important coaching decisions in the final minute and a half of that game and try to steer the
He
ship.
coached a masterpiece. He coached
Like
a
he had
masterpiece
to
down the
like,
stretch.
and I'll tell you what, and it's honestly, I can't say like how hard has that got to be coaching a team of 16th seeded players, and they know what the moment is. Like they understand at some point, and
Some of these kids were playing D2 basketball not too long ago,
and they and they still like found a way to keep composure and steer it home, like and I mean, listen, it was a masterpiece by FDU. I think they're gonna get absolutely slaughtered tonight. But I mean, the story's Purdue, man. I just think that, and I'm sure that he's coming up later too. I think similar to Virginia, it's just a program you can't trust come this time of year. You just can't. I mean, it just every single year. And I feel like, to an extent, us really hardcore fans have tried to find reasons to believe. We've tried to find reasons to believe in those teams, and we just haven't been able to. Even last year, man, they lost to a 15 seed last year and a 16 seed this year.
They lose to back-to-back years. They lose to Jersey teams and all that. But it's just, and with Purdue, man, it's frustrating because they're good enough, even on a bad day.
Yeah,
they should beat Fairleigh Dickinson.
They should have been able to play a D- game and win.
Exactly. Like you should be able to play a D- game and win by less than 10 points.
Yeah, like you should be able to be like, hey man, like that was the worst game we played all season. And
especially with Zach Edey on your team. Like
he's the biggest... frustrating, yelling at the TV, someone throw him the ball. Like, and they just wouldn't throw the ball in. Like they were just jacking.
They were just so, I think, like you said, the moment got too big for them because the way Fairleigh Dickinson was pressuring them is like they were so afraid they didn't want to turn the ball over that they were just like, no, that man is bigger than everyone. Just throw a little high. Like it just felt like what the game plan for Dickinson was just,
and they were going to blow the whistle, man. They were blowing the whistle for him because like FDU is the smallest team in the country. 3 out of 363 teams, they are the 363rd team in height. That's the smallest.
Take advantage. That's why I get on Painter, because that's like, like you've got to figure out, like, tell your guys to give the big man the ball. Like, this is a small team. Like, he's 7 foot, whatever. Like, let him dominate. But they just got so afraid.
The crazy thing is too, like, Edey was either catching the ball and getting a dunk, or Edey wasn't catching the ball and they were calling a foul because they were so small that they just assumed if Edey didn't catch the ball, it was because he got fouled.
Because he's getting high, yeah.
And so, like, and I'm just telling you, and like we talked about the game pressure being applied to Fairleigh Dickinson because they know the moment. The same thing goes the other way though. Like Purdue had to know with 3 minutes left, down by like 2. It's like, like we're on the verge of being team number 2 here. Like
they probably assumed that they can just come back because they're Purdue and they're playing a small school, but and they're not a 3-point shooting team, Walker. They're not a good 3-point shooting team, and they relied on the 3 as if they are, like as if Professor Laurie is like a 31% shooter and all that. Like
they kept
relying on the 3. Why? You're not.
They started shooting like they were down. They started shooting like they were down 5, like down, and it was like a tie game or 2 minutes, or tied down 2 with like 2 minutes to go.
Yeah,
like you could have walked up the floor and thrown it into the post and been tied or up 1,
like you've been doing all year.
Exactly.
I don't get why they went out, and I guess that's just the pressure of March Madness and all that, but I just don't get why they got out of their comfort zone. Like,
I don't either.
Like it's been working all year. You're not a 3-point shooting team, and yet that's what you're doing.
5 for 26 from deep.
They shot like 30 something, low 30s in a season. Like I said, Fletcher Laurie is a 32% 3-point shooter, and they were jacking up threes as if that's what their MO is.
Edey was 7 for 11 from the field and 7 for 10 at the foul line. He got 11. He shot. Zach Edey had 1 more field goal attempt than Mason Gillis.
Yeah,
and Mason Gillis attempted.
Braden Smith shot awful. It just the guards just did not.
I'll tell you what. Talk about who got eaten up. Braden Smith got eaten up.
He got yeah, he did not. He wasn't good.
He couldn't play. Like he was unplayable. But the problem is nobody else was playable either. Like Gillis was awful too. Lawyer was awful. They were all bad.
Gillis was bad too. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
get a team that can't shoot threes decides to start
Well,
jacking up threes against a team that you're 10 times better than. Like I don't get it.
I've said this now about team, and not just about a specific conference or even Purdue. Teams that are built around the big man just don't go in March. You have to build around your guards, and if you have guards that are susceptible to getting eaten alive like Purdue did, like there's not a team in this tournament that can't beat you. Like, and that's the truth. That's just what it. That's just what it's
small backcourt too. Small backcourt,
and that's just what it is now. Like you have to be built around your guards. Like look at the team that won the national championship last year. Like you had Jalen Wilson on the wing with Remy Martin and DeJuan Harris in the backcourt. And Remy Martin won most outstanding player. Like, how do you think they won that championship? They won it with their guards.
Their guard player.
Look at who else was in the Final Four. Like Houston was in the Final Four behind Marcus Sasser, and I don't even remember who else was playing in the backcourt. But we knew it was because of their guard. Quentin Grimes at some point was on that team. Look at when Baylor won it. Davion Mitchell was running the point with other good guards around them. Guard play is what wins this time of year. In Purdue, and this is Purdue reminded me a lot of the Iowa team that was built around Luka Garza. Like it was very, very similar, and everybody knew all year that they weren't worth anything. And I just didn't think that they would get exposed so fast. Like I thought tonight would probably be the night. I thought we'd be sitting here with, take your pick of whoever won that 8-9 game. And then those guards would eat them up. But I don't know, man. Like to me, it was just, I was shocked. I was sitting in a house of people that bet Fairleigh Dickinson first half money line. And so even when Fairleigh Dickinson was up at the half, like even when the game was over, I was just like lost for words almost.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was definitely disappointing, but yeah, it's mind-boggling. It really is. I just don't get how they just got out of their game plan and all that, and it is disappointing. But I know Purdue has a lot of limitations and all that, what they can do, NIL, all that. Who they can recruit and all that. But
and that's what we were talking about pre-show. It's just, but at some point you have to get enough to where you can go get one or two guys in the portal in the backcourt.
Exactly.
You can grow and develop big men. We've seen it now. They did it with Travion Williams. They did it with Edey. They've had other guys that have been good on those teams, like in the post for like just over the years. Like you have to.
Especially last year's team. Last year's team should have been a Final Four team. Easily.
Oh my God, they should have won. Yeah,
like you said, Travion, Ivy,
Travion, Ivy, Edey was on the bench. Like Edey was coming off the bench. Like college, like the National Player of the Year this year was coming off the bench. They had wings that were good. But they had last year was the year, and they missed the boat.
Last year's year, but it just seems like year after year, Purdue just keeps disappointing and all that.
They'll be back, and we'll have this conversation.
And they'll be a 1 seed, 2 seed next year. And we'll be doing this again. They got
to question is whether it'll be on Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, and it's definitely disappointing. But Purdue, the second 1 seed to lose in the first round to a 16 seed, still very shocking and all that. But let's get to let's talk about another. Was there any other surprise? Was there any other games? Any other team that you were like, all right, I'm convinced they're gonna win no matter what, and then they disappointed you. Like you had them locked. You did 17 brackets and all 17.
Arizona. Like it's in the title. And Arizona went on. Arizona was a little different than Purdue. Like Arizona did go on the run to put the game away, and then allowed Princeton to go on the run to get back in it. Like
Princeton.
Yeah, crazy. And I'll tell you, like, it was tough to watch. Like, but I'll tell you this, like, especially if you watched yesterday, like, Princeton runs really good offense, and it's all really well thought out and really well drawn up. It's really hard to guard. It's 5 out. Everybody can shoot. And I just think that's kind of like they hit from deep in that first game, and that's what kept them in it. Yesterday
Defense, though, they're playing good defense,
I
though,
know, and
man.
yesterday was a thorough ass beating.
Like, they destroyed
But yeah, which
destroyed Missouri.
Missouri, the computers hated Missouri. I wasn't really sure. Like, I kind of was in between. Like, I think Missouri fans thought that they were a 4 seed, but I think that the computers thought Missouri was like a borderline bubble team, and I was like, I'm somewhere in between.
Yeah,
It looks like
agree, yeah.
it looks like it was closer to the computers than it was to because Princeton didn't even shoot it well yesterday. Like,
Mm-mm.
it was just, yeah, Dennis had a good team, but again, there's a balance to things, and I think playing Kobe Brown at the 5 is not a formula to win because Princeton dominated the glass too, and that's what got them going on offense is getting so many. I think they had like 14 offensive rebounds.
But in the game against Zona, they didn't even shoot the ball well.
I know.
And Tabellas was able to get to had I think 20 something points or whatever.
They've
But
done a great job on the glass, man, limiting
it,
opponents to one shot, and then they're getting there and they're creating second looks for themselves.
yep, they were able to contest a lot of shots, rebound the ball, and just play good defense.
Yeah.
And Arizona could not buy a bucket.
You want to it's almost with Fairleigh
Other than
Dickinson.
Tabellas. But Tabellas had 6 turnovers.
With Fairleigh Dickinson, there's a lot to talk about. With Princeton, you almost feel like, like, what am I supposed to say? Like, I mean, like, they've just played thoroughly good basketball. Like, and I kind of feel like it's like, yeah, like, I think that we all, like, they were a 15 seed, so we all just assumed that would be it. Like, but I'm just
15
like,
seeds from an Ivy League school, too. So we just
yeah, and like,
assume they don't have athletes and all that, and they're just not going to be able to compete
yeah,
with.
and they just played really well. They just played really well, and I'm just kind of like, all right, man, like, we'll just see where it goes now. Like, I'm kind of like, all right, I'm going to watch the next game, and we'll just see what it looks like. Like,
yeah, they're their fourth 15 seed to make it to the Sweet
I
Sixteen.
do feel bad for them though, man. They got the winner of Creighton Baylor. Good luck.
I think I've been on the Creighton bandwagon all year. I'm still riding.
I mean, man, I sent the message in the group chat. I think it was the day of the national title game last year, and I was like, "Hey, I just bet Creighton like 80-1 or 100-1."
The only thing is their bench is not good, and they just lost. I forgot the guy's name, but he hurt his ankle.
Mason Moore, Mason,
something like he hurt his ankle. So they're gonna be heavily reliant on their starting 5 to, and it seemed like all year Creighton is just like they couldn't figure out. They couldn't figure out the.
It's just a team that I'm a little worried because pieces just never came together.
Yeah, it's like you need Arthur Kaluma to be able to do some stuff off the dribble and all that, but you want to rely on your guards. You need Bayer Scheinman out in the perimeter, but then you got to feed the big man. It just like they couldn't find it there. Like what was going to work for them.
Mason Miller got hurt.
Yeah, he hurt his ankle or his knee or something.
It
like
looks
that.
like it was a high. I think they said it was a high ankle sprain.
It was an ankle sprain.
Even if they get through, those things vary. Like he could be back after today theoretically.
Yeah, they just need for depth because that's the one thing that's killed Creighton is if one guy's out, they don't have anyone close,
and they don't really need 6'9" guys going down.
No, exactly. But Creighton's good though. I think when Creighton's clicking, they're one of the best teams in the country. So
yeah,
and now the path just got that much easier.
And despite everything, like the computers still think it's a top 10 team. And like I think that I don't know that it's a top 10
every advanced site has them still very high, regardless of their record. That's been all year though. Like even when they went through their slump where they lost like 6 in a row, 7 in a row, whatever, early season, they were still like Ken Palm and all these they still had them top 10, 15. Like it was like it's there. Like they know they're good. It just, things happen.
Things have to come together. And I mean, like, and we talked about this a little bit, like, and I think this is, although I think today is a little different, but most nights it just kind of has to go through a Kalkbrenner at this point.
They gotta. What do you have? 30? Yeah, 30, right?
30 and 11, maybe something like that.
Yeah. So I think they're gonna have to work this. I
do think I'll be interested to see how Baylor attacks because this is a nightmare matchup for them. Because typically teams that can attack Baylor off the dribble drive and really eat them up because they don't guard, they'll just go into that zone and they'll zone teams. But you can't zone Creighton; you'll get shot out of the gym.
No, they got Behrman will light it up and
like Creighton's coming off a super poor shooting performance. They won't shoot it as bad as they shot it 2 days ago.
But if Baylor's gonna have to shoot the lights out. they're gonna have to shoot the lights out.
I really don't think they even have to. Like, I really think they're gonna be able to get to the rim, and I think theoretically get guys in foul trouble. And the problem with Baylor too is Baylor's gonna shoot. Baylor's shot selection this year has been bad. Like, it's a lot of isolation threes.
Oh yeah, because Keontae is a very high ISO heavy guy too. So.
But so is Flagler. Like, Flagler's the same
yeah.
way. Like, I think that I don't necessarily know that Creighton has to shoot the lights out. I think if you play good defense and you force them into those tough shots, like more often than not, you're living with those. And if they shoot the lights out taking those, you weren't going to win no matter how well you shot. Like
Baylor doesn't have size too.
Yeah,
to handle Cockburner. So
I know.
You got to go inside out.
I know, and that's the problem. And that's another reason Baylor can't go zone is because they'll get killed on the offensive glass. And I think that. And I don't think Baylor can contain Trey and Nembhard off the dribble drive at all.
No.
It's a nightmare matchup for Baylor. They did not want the team that had guards that could attack them that can also shoot the lights out. They did not.
This is why I like Creighton because they have the ingredients. They have the guards, right? That we talked about that you need. With Trey Alexander and then they have the big man.
Yeah.
So
they've got it. And then the only thing I wish is they had a coach that had been there before, but they're But I'll tell you what, man, nuts on the table time. The two sets he drew up ATO were bonkers. I got wide, could not have been more wide open shots. And Shireman knocked them both down, I think. But he got two dudes wide open to put NC State away.
Yeah, he Trayvon's gonna do his stuff, but you don't want Trayvon and Joyner to go off, right? That was the key. Like you can't let them both go off. And I think Joyner had 10 points or something like that. And he missed every shot from three, so I think over 7 or something like that.
Yeah. Well, they just made Jarkel take super tough step back mid-range jumpers. And he's not the biggest dude in the world, and I think probably Creighton's size wore him down a little bit as the game went on, where he got a couple to go in early. Also, and this is something I'd pay attention to, and this is where you get a little
Nembhard and Alexander got in him, so
yeah, and also this is where you get a little concerned with Creighton. This game's in Denver. I bet the altitude is going to be a problem.
I didn't even think about
because that's what they were talking about. Because Terquavion was gassed every 4 minutes.
Yeah, he looked spent. He had to work hard for that 31,
and it was because of the altitude, man. It was he was coming out early in the first half because he couldn't breathe. He was having to sit down and catch his breath. I think that's where the depth a little bit comes into concern. You're playing your second game in 3 days. You had 1 day off in between games, and you're playing at high altitude. Now, I mean, I know Baylor is too, but Baylor has more bodies that they can throw in the game. And also their game wasn't close where they didn't have to play all their guys all the way down the stretch.
That's going to be the key for Creighton is if they get in foul trouble.
You got to get to the under 4. You've got to find a way to get to the under 4 and still be in the game and just be able to find a way to get it home.
Yeah, because like I said, Baylor just might have just more bodies. That'll
the game is a pick 'em, and if you told me either team won, I wouldn't be surprised. I bet Creighton, but I would not be surprised either way.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a pick. It's gonna be a good game though.
It will be for sure. I just don't think a team with Baylor's defensive woes can continue to survive in this tournament.
Yeah,
honestly, Princeton's rooting for Baylor. It's damn, God, I'd love to play that defense.
Yeah, I don't think Princeton wants to play Creighton. I think Baylor, they could sneak up on Baylor.
Creighton, but I think Creighton is a 15 to 20 point Creighton win waiting to happen. And then if you're Alabama, you're damn, we have to play San Diego State's athletes, and while Creighton gets to rest their starters for 12 minutes because they blew Princeton out.
Yeah, so that's definitely going to be a good matchup.
It's definitely set up for Creighton to get to the Final Four. I'm not saying this year's a failure if they don't, because the reality is they're playing a 3 seed here, and the game's a toss-up. So, you're going to have to play an A- or B+ to A+ type game to win. If they win today, then you can start talking about, all right, if you're not in the Elite 8, it's a failure. If you're not in the Final Four, this could theoretically be a failure.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, so we can talk about Alabama real quick. I thought they kind of turned it back up last night.
I want to talk about my team.
Okay.
Talk about my Blue Devils in Tennessee.
Yeah.
You hit it on the head. You hit it on the head on what was going to happen and all that. And I just didn't I thought Duke would be more prepared. They knew it was gonna be a physical game with Tennessee.
Yeah. Shire waited
And
way too long to go zone.
he took. Yeah, I think Shire showed his youth as a coach in this game, big time. Because and also like we weren't able to get. There was no easy baskets in that game.
Nothing.
Like there was Proctor making tough shots.
Yep.
In that game, and
And even Whitehead.
Lively didn't even get to do anything, and Whitehead was just a non-factor.
Well, and he was hot early, and that was
early, but most of the game,
yeah,
he was a
well,
non-factor.
And honestly, the worst thing for Duke was him seeing those first shots go in, because then he started taking bad shots.
Then he took some bad shots, and he started getting a little too off the dribble and taking some pull-up three, and it just was like, all right, that's not what we need right now. And that's been his
problem is there was nothing they could run that was going to get an open shot with the way Tennessee was guarding.
How many times did they have the ball, Walker? 5 seconds left on the shot clock, and it's still at the 3-point line.
I know. Like
Tennessee, I knew Tennessee's defense was really good, but they came, and Vescovi, he did everything, because obviously with Ziegler out, that was going to be tough,
I got the Julian Phillips thing early in the year, but man, like you can definitely see what Vescovi means to that team. Like down the stretch last night, there was some Duke runs where they got back in it, and Vescovi
was a 4-point game, and Vescovi, and I'm like, oh, we cannot let Vescovi even get a little, because he doesn't need that much space.
Like at the shot clock buzzer, and right then and there, I was like, that's it.
Yeah, he killed a lot of Duke runs where Duke would come back, and it's just a buck, down 3, down 4. And Vescovi hits a 3 that's just like, oh man, that hurt, and then that just creates more.
And then they got the big game from Nakama.
Yeah. I mean, Vescovi did it everywhere, right? He made some big time shots. Yeah. Was able to pass. His passing was really good. Like he made some really good passes and all that.
Tennessee, and this has not been Barnes' strength, but the zone offense was good last night.
Oh, and I've been on Barnesy.
Yeah,
but.
I'll tell you,
he coached a great game. He coached.
I'll tell you what, he coached hungry last night. That team came.
He wanted that.
He wanted that one.
That one meant a lot to him. He needed that. No, but he really needed that.
Yeah,
like he needed that,
and his team embodied it too, because it carried onto the floor. Like if the ball was on the deck, Tennessee was the first to the floor. Like they won the glass. Like they were physical from the jump, like borderline assault physical. Like. And I just don't know that Duke thought that was what they were getting.
No.
They did not look prepared.
Derek Lively didn't even get an attempt around the basket. Like he was able to do what he would do defensively, and he's a big reason why the game wasn't worse. Like,
even worse, yeah.
Like Tennessee probably could win this by 20, but Lively's presence at the rim helped him. But he usually gets around 3 to 4 easy buckets around the rim. Nothing. Didn't even get an attempt, because they just knew they just took over that end.
Yeah, and Duke
Jacob Grandison. Oh,
Oh, dude,
what a disappointment! What a disappointment this season.
Sum up the game in one play. It was Grandison standing on the wing, and Tennessee just walking up and ripping the ball out.
Was that Vescovi, right? Was that because Vescovi had a couple steals where he?
It was either Vescovi or and then Whitehead walked his man over there, where it was just like he basically walked him into Tennessee into a jump ball, basically. Mm-hmm. Like it was just. They
shot 9 of 21 from 3, Tennessee. Everything that could go right for them went right. They just,
and when you think about it, though, man, all of Olivier's
threes, Duke's defense wasn't bad.
All of Olivier's threes were wide open.
But yeah,
and to be honest, we all knew that kid could make
7 of 9 for 7 of 9 for 3, or 7 of 10, something like that.
There were some guys on that, Tennessee.
But can they rely on that going to the next round? That's going to be the thing.
I don't know.
Can they play this game in the next round?
And I think the thing that'll be different, and excuse me for writing them through, but I think we can pretty much write Florida Atlantic through. I think the difference between the difference between Duke and FAU will be FAU should be able to loosen them up a little bit from deep. And they'll also have a 7-footer that can get down there and battle on the glass and stuff. And
Duke's inability to shoot from the 3, Duke's been historically very, had a couple guys that could shoot from deep.
I'll tell you what, man,
they had no one. If Rick, I knew that was going to be a little, but I thought they would just have enough, because the way they've been flowing off. But Filipowski was taking some terrible 3-pointers.
Yeah,
he took a couple where it was like, what are you doing?
I don't think he wanted to be in the paint last night. After
No,
all,
because he
I
got
think
beat up. He was getting
he's
beat
getting
up. He
beat
got the
up.
cut
Yeah,
on his face and all that, but he was
yeah,
getting that was I think they underestimated how physical that game was going to be.
yeah,
Like they've gone against physical teams like UVA, but UVA is not as physical
yeah.
as as
Tennessee
Tennessee
was a little
was.
bit more street fight physical than basketball physical.
Yeah, and I don't think Duke, and it's kind of like what we talk about Purdue. They weren't used to what they saw. A team being so upfront on them. I think the same thing goes with Duke. I think I underestimated that. I thought they would be more prepared, but not seeing a team like Tennessee pretty much all year. I mean, UVA to an extent, but UVA doesn't have anyone that can really take over the way like a Viscovi can and all that. But
Yeah, I'll tell you what, if Rick gets this team to the Elite Eight and like all things considered, arguably the best coaching job he's ever done. When you lose Ziegler and you lose the guy who initiates your offense and you still find a way to be playing with a chance to go to the Final Four,
yeah,
whatever happens from there, you just like it's just like all the credit in the world goes to him at that point. Like we can make all the jokes and stuff about big game Rick or whatever, but if he wins that Sweet 16 team and gets that team to an Elite Eight, you could argue it's his best coaching job.
but the thing is that is Olivier going to have another game where he shoots 7 of 9 from 3?
I don't know, but you could argue that they're not going to need it to be at FAU. Like, and listen, I've been driving the Florida Atlantic wagon. I saw them in their second game of the year, and I knew right then I was like, that team's really good.
Yeah, Dusty got that team rolling.
And so, and like, I'm not saying I'm not writing Tennessee into the win column there, but like, you could argue though, like FAU's not going to have seen a physical defense like that. Like that's going to be a whole new ball game for them. And
Yeah.
if Tennessee wins that game, doesn't matter how much they win by. All that matters is survive and advance. We had that.
Just got to win. It doesn't matter how you win.
Like we had that conversation last night about Texas, but like, if Tennessee wins that game and gets to the Elite Eight, I'm just telling you, like, that's his best coaching job ever.
Yeah, and that's what's eluding him, man. That deep run with a talented team.
And if he runs deep with this group, and I've been a Rick Barnes truther. Like, I'm not a big Rick guy, but like, I mean, I think he's a good basketball. I like him more than you and Kev do, but like, I'm still not just a fan, I guess. But like, Rick coached a great basketball game last night. They played hungry. He had his guys ready to go, and I mean, you got a little bit worried when Duke made some jump shots early, but once the jump shot, that end of the first half run, I was like,
that was needed.
I was like, well, it honestly felt not game over per se, but it was like, oh yeah, this is trouble. Like
they set the tone.
6-point lead at the half might as well have been 12 with the way that
with the way Duke was shooting and the way their offense was moving. That 6-point lead, like any 6-point lead during that game, felt like it was a 12-point lead. It was a double digit. Like it felt bigger, and it felt like
Tennessee made a 3. You were just like,
yeah. And then because Duke is not the perimeter team that they've used to be, right? Or they don't have that true takeover guy.
Yeah,
it felt like 6-point lead, and they just pressed, and they needed Proctor to hit some. If Proctor doesn't hit some of those contested mid-range shots, we're talking about a 20-point loss by Duke, because they just nobody stepped up. Filipowski didn't shoot the ball well. Like I said, Jake Branson, disappointment all season. Whitehead just he played the way he played the whole season. It was just too much up and down, and Roach got into foul trouble. I mean, he had 4, and he probably should have been.
He finished the game with 4 and probably could have had 7. Like,
well, he should have been out and they gave it to a Proctor. That's probably he should have been out earlier, but they just Duke just couldn't figure it out. Tennessee really stifled.
I'll tell you what, we may be looking at an all SEC Elite 8 game there. If it goes the way I think it's going to go, we're looking at an all SEC Elite 8 game there.
Yeah, it's that was an impressive win, maybe the most impressive win of the tournament, because just the way they just stifled Duke and just made them look so small. It was really impressive and all that. But let's head over to another SEC team, the Razorbacks of Arkansas.
Yeah,
and obviously Kansas does not have Bill Self, and how much do you think of a factor that was not having Coach Self? Obviously, he's a Hall of Fame coach, national champion, and all that. But Did you feel
Dude,
like
massive.
he was a massive difference in that
Yes,
game if he was coaching?
100%, man, because
Agree. Yeah, I agree.
Arkansas doesn't finish the run and get back in that game if Self's on the bench because Self doesn't wait until it gets down to 1 to call the timeout. He calls the timeout when Kansas is up 5, resets, and then the veteran guards take him home. And that's what I kept telling the people I was watching the game with. I was like, it's all right. Kansas's veteran guards are going to take him home. Like, DeJuan Harris and Jalen Wilson are going to find a way to push this thing over the edge. But once you let Arkansas get back to the point that they got to, at that point, you can call the timeout. It's too late. It's too late at that point. Bill Self would have never let it get to that point. And I'm not taking anything away from Arkansas. Like, that's not Arkansas. Arkansas can only play who they played. That's not Arkansas.
They didn't even play good. That's the crazy part.
Like,
Arkansas didn't play good. Nick Smith wasn't good.
Arkansas played like exactly, and
how they've been playing all year.
In this. When they show you who they are, believe it. Arkansas showed us who they were all season long, and they were that exact same team yesterday.
Nick Smith, Anthony Black had 4 points,
and that's why I'm not a believer in like that team can't. No, and like that team can't get to the Final Four because they can't shoot. And at some point, when you can't shoot, you're going to run into a team who can shoot, and they're probably going to pay you. And they're probably like that team can't beat Connecticut because Connecticut's going to have the size and the athleticism to match them on the glass.
And all that.
And if that's the case, they're if that's the case, they're in trouble. So,
because they're
like
playing
Muzz deserves all
the winner of St. Mary's and UConn in the next matchup.
Yes. Muzz deserves all the credit in the world because this team shouldn't be playing next week, but they are, and that's all on him. Like, he got that team there. He managed a lot of personalities and a lot of adversity and still found a way to get them to this point.
And without their best players playing their best.
This is to me, it was a huge I was so pissed off at Kansas with the way they handled the end of the game. It did not look like a team that won the national championship last year.
No.
At all. It looked like a team that was out of control, a team that was confused, that had no idea what to do in the moment. And to me, that is where you miss your head coach.
Yeah.
Your Hall of Fame, arguably best coach in the game, head coach.
And I hope he's okay and all that, because whatever it was, it's a lot worse than we thought it was. For him to miss, how many games straight he's missed? For 4.
He missed all the Big 12 tournament games, which was 3. And he missed 5. He missed the last 5
games. So that's tough. Losing your head coach.
We saw this in the Big 12 tournament. When Texas punched him, Kansas didn't punch back. We probably should have known early. Like, we probably
should have been a sign.
That probably should have been a red flag instead of and I know Texas played their A+ game that night, but Texas beat the shit out of him in Austin, came back to Kansas City a week later, and then beat the shit out of him again. That probably should have been because usually in those spots, and I know that you tell your players, like, don't let revenge sit on the mind, but it's always going to. Usually in those revenge spots, you play a little bit more motivated, and Texas still just came in and was like, screw your little revenge. Like, we're just going to come in here and whip your ass again. And that probably should have been a red flag. But it is what it is at this point.
Yep, and
I'm sure they had a smooth flight last night.
I'm sure Kansas is pretty, they're definitely disappointed right now because this could have been a legit chance to win back-to-back for the first time since Florida did it.
But it's funny. Teams that win the national title don't do well the next year. Like, it just historically, like, they fail to make the Sweet 16 regularly. Like, and maybe they're just a victim of that. I don't know.
All the Final Four teams from last year are out.
I know.
We got Villanova didn't make the tournament. Carolina didn't make the tournament. Kansas is out, and Duke's out in the first weekend too of all things. Which is, like I said, it's tough to get back to the Final Four. That's why, like I said, only two times. The 2 times in the last almost 35 years, there's been teams that won back-to-back. It is hard to win back-to-back championships, and Kansas won't be doing that. We'll have a new national champion and all that. Tough loss for Kansas and all that. But Bama, are they going to coast, or is San Diego State going to be the one to slip them up? Because they've obviously looked dominant for a long time throughout the whole season. They've just been really good and all that. Can San Diego State slip them up, though?
Absolutely. 100% they can.
What do they have to do?
Play defense like they did yesterday. I mean,
Their defense been on point too.
Dude, they guarded the ever living hell out of
It's awesome.
out of Furman yesterday. And I know athletes, it's going to be different. Yada yada yada. Take your counterpoints and shove them up your ass. Like, I'm just telling you that team's going to be able to switch 1 through 5, which against Oates' offense is a huge issue because that means basically everything they run, like San Diego State, will be able to comfortably have someone sitting in front of them. I don't know that they have an isolation defender that's going to be able to, guard Brandon Miller in the crunch time of the game. But I'm just telling you, this could be a Matt Bradley legacy game too.
It really could be.
Big guard who's going to try to get to the rack. I think that's one of those things where it's like, all right, like if San Diego State gets buckets, Bama's going to be in trouble because Bama's going to have trouble scoring. Like it's not a good matchup for their offense, which has already been stagnant at times. If San Diego State, I think, is 8th coming into the tournament, they were 8th in the country in contested 3 rate, which means basically if you take threes, we are going to have a hand in your face.
They have to. You have to, Brandon Miller. Have to. And that's at a 40% clip, Mike.
And that's the thing. It's like not one of those things where we're sitting here and it's like, oh, well, you have to do that in this matchup. They've done it all year. Like I don't have to tell them they're gonna have to do it because I know they're gonna do it. They do it every time. It's why Furman didn't take a single open shot yesterday. And and I think too, they've got the athletes around the rim to keep Alabama off the glass. And like that's the other thing with Alabama. If you keep them off the offensive glass and limit them to 1 shot, and you're getting hands and faces on threes, like Bama, they can hold Bama in the 50s or the 60s. And if you're holding them there, then they're in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And if the tempo is slow, which is what San Diego State wants it to be, like I'm just telling you, like that could be a grind. It's going to be a grind. Like
it's going to be because San Diego State can defend a 3 really well.
Yep.
And Bama, other than Brandon Miller, they were middle of the pack 3-point shooting team as is.
Yeah.
But if you make it tough for Brandon Miller, then now the rest of the team is okay. They're not great at 3-point shooting team with the rest of the team.
And if you keep Bediako off the glass, or even
Bediako off the glass, even County and all that,
yeah. It's one of those. It's one of those that could very easily get away from them. I mean, I picked San Diego State in my bracket.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the Aztecs in my bracket. I think San Diego State is going to beat them next Friday.
That's going to be a good one. I'm looking forward to that match.
I've kind of pounded the drum, and this is gonna, I guess maybe I'm turning into Jocelyn, but like Brian Dutcher is the man with the plan. He always has a plan. He is always going to have a plan, and his plan isn't. If his plan doesn't work, there's going to be another plan, and another one after that. He's going to have them in a place where they are going to be competitive to win the game because he always does. That team does not get that team never goes in and has a bad plan. And in game is a little different, all that stuff, but like that team always has a plan. He is the man with the plan. And like his plan for Furman yesterday,
he's been great there. So
yeah, he's been great there. Fantastic. And like if you really go back through their schedule this year, they were in position to win every game they played, with the exception of on the road to Arizona at the beginning of the year. And that's the only team that beat them by double digits all year. They've been in every single game they played this year. They're not and so people think and this is and the good thing is too is like you're not getting San Diego State and being like, yeah, well, this is a caliber of opponent they hadn't faced. Like, what do you mean? They played the 2 seed of this region on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Mountain West, like you played good teams. Like it's not Alabama, obviously, but like San Diego State played San Diego State had games against had road games against both St. Mary's. Against both St. Mary's and Arizona early in the year, and then they had a neutral site game against Arkansas. Like this team's battle tested. They're battle tested. Hell, they beat my fun Kennesaw State team by 34 earlier in the year.
Kennesaw State. I had them advancing in every bracket, man. Thought they were gonna do it.
You and I had Xavier in the bracket as like an emotional hedge type deal, but I really did think that they were going to go through. And up 13, I basically called game. I thought it was over.
I thought it was over too, but Kennesaw State could not.
And don't let anybody tell you size doesn't matter.
And Drake too, man. Drake. Mr. DeVries could
Yeah,
not.
I'll say
He looked
this.
like he did not look like
Drake and Kennesaw State are whole different conversations. Like Xavier made a bunch of shots, and Kennesaw State just couldn't buy one. Like they were getting good looks, like they were still
especially
playing.
late. It felt like they just
like
nothing can go right.
Drake just threw the ball away. Like they just threw the ball away, couldn't beat the press.
So frustrating.
And when they did beat the press, you could tell that they were so heated up in the moment that like
jacking up shots.
That was just failure. They should be ashamed.
They should have won that game.
They should have won that game.
But Tucker, he had 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was his moment because he's been one of like the hot names, especially in draft Twitter. People talking a lot about him, and I started to grow to like him and all. I'm like, he's going to be a big reason why they're going to go to Sweet 16. I was like, they're going to Sweet 16 because of him. He had 3 points, and he did not look like a pro.
No,
like he looked like you get him in his face and 1 of 11 from 3. Like he just could not figure it out. Like, and if he just has a half decent game, a third of a decent game, they're advancing.
if he scores double digits, they win the game. Like,
yeah. If he scores 9 points, they win the game.
Half the scoring average, they go to the second round.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy because Wong had like
Wong was
points. Awful. He was not good.
No. And they did a great job on him. God, and if he got eaten up by Drake's athletes, good luck tonight.
Yeah. And yeah, I think Miami takes a.
My buddy Chris Bolton
takes a whooping.
But I am
whooping. They're not stopping Trace Jackson. Like who's guarding him?
No.
Who's guarding him? No one.
Omeir's going to take the first run, and if he gets in foul trouble, it's a
wrap.
Yeah, it's a wrap. It's over at that point. And Omeir's not exactly. He's fine. I'm not. There's people that are higher on Omeir than I am. I think he's just like, Like I'm just kind of.
He's solid. He's a solid.
He's fine.
He's their biggest guy, and it's not going to be enough against Indiana. And Indiana, a lot of people were crazy about Indiana, and then they absolutely, they dominate in their first round. So it's like this Indiana team is might be underrated. A lot of people picking Kent State against them, and they took care of business. But Trace Jackson is going to be tough for Miami. I don't think they have a chance, to be honest. I think this is a double-digit win for Indiana.
I think so too. Line's only 1 though, which kind of sketched me out.
That is, yeah.
That sketched me out. I was like, well, hold up. That doesn't feel right.
Yeah. When it doesn't feel right, usually there's something up. Because I felt the same way about Duke, Tennessee, and
although Jalen Hood Schifino could easily get Indiana eliminated. So
yeah. But what Schifino do we get? Because there's some times where
he was awful in their first game.
When he looks good, he looks good. But when he looks bad, he's throwing passes 18 rows into the stands and all that. So we got to see what Schifino we get. But
so just hypothetical question here. What does an Indiana-Houston matchup look like? Like, what does that look like? Like, what does that look like? Like, can Houston guard TJD? Like,
you're gonna have to put Jarice on him.
Yeah, and the problem, and I'll say this: the problem for teams trying to guard Trace now is that Trace Jackson Davis has truly evolved as a passer.
He can pass.
He can really pass.
See, everybody wanted him to, when he went back, like, we need him to work on the perimeter shooting. And I was like, no, if he gets to become a better playmaker, that's a huge upgrade to his game. That can get him from being late second to being a first-round pick, is that playmaking in the post. And he's a really good passer. Really good. I don't care about the outside, him shooting. Like, that's whatever.
No, man, because he can find
passing. He could find exactly.
And that's also why you can't double him. Like,
you
can't double him at this point because he's gonna be able to pass out. And Indiana's got enough shooters where, like, if you double him, you're taking a huge risk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they can shoot you out of the gym theoretically, especially if JHS.
They shoot like what, high 30s, and that's a 3-point shooting team. So they got it. They have what
it feels like. If you're gonna beat them, you have to just like lock everybody else up, and if Trace goes crazy, then that's just gonna keep it close. Like, it feels like you just kind of have to let Trace score.
You gotta let Trace, and like you said, put the ball in Jalen Schifino's hand and make him try to make him play out of his game, out of his element. Because when Schifino, this is why I think a lot of people like Schifino, is because of the upside and all that. But like we mentioned before, if you can get him to play out of rhythm, like where he is a freshman at the end of the day, you get him out of whack and all that. You saw that sometimes in a lot of it in certain games in the Big Ten tournament, where he played a little bit out of whack and it kind of hurt them. But if you get that, if you're able to let him, do that, you're gonna have a chance. But you're gonna need Kopp and Galloway to do what they've been doing from the perimeter. But his passing has been the biggest difference, Trace, for sure. So if he gets Kopp and Galloway and they're able to hit their shots, it's gonna be tough for Miami to beat them. It's gonna be tough as is, even if those guys don't even aren't on point.
Yeah. Do you worry at all that the Houston second half was maybe a mirage and that Indiana would give them very real problems?
Houston, man, I don't know. I don't.
And they're one of those, like we were just talking about, when they show you who they are, believe them. But they're showing us like 6 different things right now.
And I'm glad you said that. They're showing me a lot of things, and that's kind of scary. Especially once you're starting to play, like they're talented enough to take care of Northern Kentucky and Auburn and all that. Like they should have won, but
you want predictability at this point.
Their shooting is going to worry me.
Yeah,
they're not a good shooting team.
No, and they're not a deep team either, and that worries you.
And they got guys banged up.
Well, and I hate betting.
And Jamal Sheed scares because he could shoot. He can cost you a game too.
Yeah, and also you worry about teams that play high tempo with no depth. Like, at what point did the legs just go out?
Yeah, and I saw them. They were starting to play Terrence and Archie. I keep butchering his last name, but he was playing a lot in the tournament in conference tournament play, and I don't know. I feel like they need him more. He's a very good player, but they just haven't used him a lot this year. His minutes have been so sporadic, but it's too late. Yeah, that's the thing. So it's like Sampson's got to roll with his guys, but they don't have enough shooting. They could shoot you out of a game. They're guards.
I'll tell you what, man. Like
maybe not. But Sasha's banged up too. Like. And then, you're gonna rely on Jamal Sheed to carry you. Like, he shoots 31% from 3. I can't.
I want that Houston. I want that Houston Texas game. I really want that Houston Texas game.
Texas might be able to.
Dude, I just want it because I think it would be just a really, really great basketball.
Yeah, but that's if Houston gets past Indiana.
I know. That's what I just said. I want to be able to sit and watch that Houston versus Texas game. I think it would just be a really great basketball game. No narratives here, no narratives, no agendas.
No narratives on future plays or anything.
No. Like from a future standpoint, I would love to play Pittsburgh.
Well, that's not happening.
Yeah, I would love to play Pittsburgh in the next round and Miami in the region final.
Imagine
that's not going to happen. I just would like, as basketball fans, we deserve that game. Like late in the tournament, we deserve that game. With the potential that the other Elite 8 games could be asked, we deserve that one. Yeah, we deserve Alabama Creighton in prime time on one night, and we deserve
Creighton would be fun.
And we deserve Houston and versus Texas on the other night.
What about this Michigan Marquette matchup? This is an intriguing one.
I hate it. I think State's going to beat them. I'm a Michigan State hater. Like, I hate this team. I think they suck, but I don't think Marquette's all that good either.
I think Marquette's overrated.
I do too. I think they're overrated. I think Michigan State sucks. I think Michigan State's going to win just because of Izzo. And, I think Izzo is going to beat Shaka because that's just what's supposed to happen this time of year. But I think Michigan State's horrible. I think that's a terrible basketball team. They're not good. They're not good on the block. Sissoko's hit or miss on defense. Their guards take terrible shots. Hogarth's too emotional.
He is.
I'm not a fan. They take terrible shots. Hauser can get exploited defensively. I'm not a fan. I think Izzo's just going to coach circles around Shaka.
I think that's the difference is the coaching.
I think so.
I think you hit a lot of points as far as Michigan State, and then very inconsistent up and down. But
yeah, I can tell you
they have Izzo.
I can tell you how much I hate him, but the reality is, I bet against them all year. And if I'm telling you, hey, if you're going to take a side in the game, it's Michigan. People don't understand. That hurts. I don't want to tell you that. I talked about, hey, we're going to bet against Michigan State in the dance, and then you get this matchup, and it's you have to be adjustable. Things change, and this is a good matchup for them. I think, and their guards' athleticism should help. I will say the only fear if you're going to go with Michigan State today is Michigan State does become even drastically worse when AJ's not in the game. When AJ's off the floor, they struggle. So I do think that's a concern. Also, Michigan State has shown all year that you can be pressed or that they can be pressed. And that's not great when Shaka's on the other side because Marquette's going to pressure them, and they should be able to turn Michigan State.
And that's going to be tough for Sissoko. Like I don't even know if he could. It's going to be tough to play him.
Oh, they're going to play him all right. They're going to play him and Hauser together.
They're going to play him. They have to, but like it's.
But see, and the worst part is, and this is one of those where Izzo probably needs to tell his guys, like, we really don't want this to be an up-tempo game. Like we really don't want it to be, but Izzo, like,
you want to be.
And coaches are weird, man. They want to play a certain type of way or whatever, and Izzo wants to run, but this is a game where Michigan State would be better off if they didn't.
Yeah, because Marquette can run too, so
and they can, and then if you turn it into that, your bigs are getting exposed.
That's what I'm saying. Like Sissoko may,
like that's what I'm saying. You have to play him. If you want to play the big, if you want to play the bigs, you have to make it happen.
And it's not like Marquette has a lot of size, so but
no. And if you want to, I'm just saying, like, if you want to play the bigs, that's cool, but you have to play a half court game at that point. Like, if you're playing the bigs next to each other, and then also on top of that, you're running. That's just bad. Like that's a bad game plan. That's just also like that's one of those where it's like, yeah, like really. To be honest with you, like Izzo's not going to do that. Izzo's not an idiot, and if Izzo does do that, I'm going to fry him. Like,
yeah, this is an intriguing matchup. This is
also
the intriguing matchup.
Like, we do the whole January, February Izzo thing, but like they really like since the Texas Tech loss, he hasn't really been great in the tournament. So we'll see.
We'll see what happens in this one. That's going to be intriguing and all that. What other matchups that we got that we didn't cover? Well, Kansas and Tuck.
Well, we didn't talk. We haven't talked about. We haven't talked about Texas at all.
Texas,
they played last night. Yeah, they played last night, and looks like they're getting Xavier. So
they're going to get Xavier. Xavier looks like they're going to take care of business against Pitt. So it's going to be
up 16.
Most likely.
They're up 16 at the under 12. So
yeah, anything can happen, but most likely it looks like Xavier is going to pull through.
Yeah, Blake Hinson's yelling at the
good run for Pitt though. Dave Capel needed this run. Felt like he was a coach that I know probably was on the hot seat.
Probably saved his job.
I think this definitely saved his job because he won 2 tournament games.
Yeah,
and had a nice run in the AC turn, like some good wins season. Like I said, a lot of stuff happened during the season, especially the whole Dior stuff and all that. Able to bounce back and have a really good season, and probably definitely keeps his job.
Yeah.
But yeah, Texas. Obviously, a lot of stuff going on with Texas this season, to say the least. The coach gets fired.
Even with him getting fired, though, it's crazy when you watch them. You can still see his fingerprints all over the team.
Exactly, and that's probably the difference. With how Kansas, obviously their coach didn't get fired, but like you could see the difference. That there wasn't the same coach team. But
also, I'll say this too. This is why, but that reason is also why I don't think it's as simple as, hey, we should give Rodney Terry the job.
Agree.
Because people were talking about, the popular take is, hey, y'all should do right by Rodney Terry. But like the counterpoint to that is, hey, Rodney Terry had Bryson Williams and Sule Boom at UTEP and couldn't even go 500.
Yeah.
He had 2 high major players and couldn't go 500 in conference play.
And his record overall, I think that's going to be a real thing. Like his record overall,
it's like, man, like we've seen
Fresno and UTEP is just not good.
It's one thing to steer the ship that someone else built. When you're the captain of the ship, there's a whole different conversation. And Texas is a sought after job, and like there's names out there. There's names floating around like Donovan. There's names floating around like Eric Musselman. When you're talking about those types of names.
They're going to do the due diligence. They're not going to just.
It is not as simple as he is going on a run. If he wins the national championship, cool. At that point, it's like you're a dick if you don't hire him. But like,
me and Kev talked about that. Like, he would have to win the national championship or get there, and
No,
be
to me, the
considered to
only way that
coach.
it is cut and dry is if he wins, if he cuts the nets. That is the only way it is cut and dry. That is
It
the
has
only
to
way
be
that
something like that. Yeah, it
it
has to
has
be
to.
a national
Because
championship.
if he loses in the tournament, you have to be like, listen, like this team was at this point, if you really want to be technical, like if you go in the odds, Texas is the third, like as far as favorites go, they're ranked third in terms of winning the national title. They're behind Houston and they're behind Alabama. You at this point, if you like, you have to get there and you have to win it. This is not an underdog story. Like this,
No.
this is
They're
loaded.
because if they let's face it, if Beard were still there, they're
They're
probably a 1 seed,
and they're probably the favorites, and they're probably the
and
favorites.
they're probably one of the favorites. Top
They're
two.
probably sitting. They're probably sitting somewhere in like, or they probably would have gotten Purdue's 1 seed, and they would have had a tough second round matchup with like an FAU or a Memphis. But like, whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter at this point.
They're gonna
But
be taking on
with the Rodney Terry thing, I think he has to win it for it to be cut and dry, and then it's just all about who you get. Like because he's going to be a candidate, and he will get another job if he doesn't get this one. But I do think that you have to at least talk to people or talk to agents. Because like, man, if the Bulls are going down and Billy Donovan's a candidate,
he should leave. That's a sinking ship.
This isn't like. Well, and this isn't like Beard at Tech where you're leaving Texas Tech, like where it's like, okay, we're a middle of the road, bottom tier.
Your ceiling is what you have a ceiling there at Texas Tech. Where Texas is unlimited. You have an
apparently you're still in the national championship because if Tariq Owens doesn't slip, then they probably win it. So, like, I mean, if we're being real about it, like DeAndre Hunter got a wide open 3 in the corner that sent it to overtime, and I'll never forget. I had Texas Tech futures that year. But point being, I just think. I don't think it's cut and dry. But I will say, like, I'm not anti-Rodney Terry. I just
no, but he has a track record that's not, good.
His track record not good. His track record
that's a real thing.
Yeah,
and like you said, this isn't his team. This is Chris Beard's blueprint.
This is Chris Beard's ship that he is steering.
And he's just, he has a lot of talent there.
Chris Beard was rightfully fired. This is not like a promotion of Chris Beard or anything. It's just
no, but it's just the facts. Like he did coach the team and he had them rolling. Like they were going to be a 1 seed.
This team is not in a different place with Rodney Terry than it would have been with Chris Beard. And if you're arguing that it was or is, then it's because they're a little bit worse.
Yeah.
Like there's no argument that they are better with Terry than they were with Beard. Like that's not you can't make that argument.
No, you can't make that argument. And if they had Beard, they're probably a 1 seed, and we're talking about them as one of the favorites to win the national championship. Let's just keep it real.
Like, the only reason people aren't writing them into the Final Four is because they have to play Houston in the Elite Eight if they get there. That's the only reason people aren't writing them into the Final Four at this point.
And that might be a slugfest, not a high scoring game.
No,
not a high scoring game at all. That might be in the 60s.
And for Texas, really, the revelation that can make a huge difference in that game has been Dylan DeSue.
I mean, he was what he had 29 against Penn State.
I think he had.
But the thing is, can he keep it up? Because they're going to need that because everyone else struggles.
But at this point,
he doesn't have that game. They're out.
I know, but I'm going to say this again. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. He's been doing this for months. He did it in the Big 12 tournament. Like he's been one of their best players for months now. Like. He may not have 28 every night, but they're not going to go 1 for 14 from 3 every night either. Like
he had a really good March. His March stats, if you just from the start, he had 10, 9, 11, 15, 18, 7. So double digits essentially almost every game except Kansas.
He's been
and they won by 16 that game.
Yeah, like and he's not like he may not be 28 every night, but like he's been really good for a long time now. At some point it's like, all right, like and he had 24 against Baylor at the end.
Since mid-February, he's legit double digits, except for
every game. Games. Like he's been double. He's been good, and even back like they played TCU, and he had like 16. Like he's been good for a while now, and they've really been working their off. He's gotten to the point that little push shot, the little floater he's got that in that mid range, he's just automatic. now. Like, he's just gotten to a point where that shot's automatic, and it's really taking pressure off their guards because he can knock it down. Teams have been giving them that shot. I don't know that Sean Miller is going to look at it and be like, yeah, like we can give him that shot, because at this point it's a free 2 points.
They need Tyrese Hunter to step up because, as we just talked about, with Isu playing his best ball, Tyrese is not. He's been inconsistent all season. But he hasn't been really that good of late.
I don't like Texas's first 5. I know, but it's a tough fix because Serge Rice's best role is off the bench as the 6th man. Like, that's his best role. It's comfortable. You're not changing it now. But I just don't love the idea of like Timmy Allen, Dylan Mitchell, and Dessou starting together. Like, that's not like, I don't love it. There's not a lot of shooting.
A lot of non-shooting on that.
Yeah.
Mitchell doesn't shoot anything.
No, he shoots layups.
He's just an athlete.
Yeah, he shoots layups, dunks, and block shots.
That's all.
Dessou is basically 15 feet, man.
You're gonna need Marcus Carr to step up and all that because he can shoot it.
I'll tell you what, though, Carr had the biggest shot of the night last night. He had a really tough take to the rack against Pickett and finished over a big. Carr had the biggest bucket of the night last night. He put it away. Carr put it away when it came down to it. So and then he also hit free throws at the end to close it out. So Carr did hit the big shots. Which if you're gonna play bad,
he's been good all year, Marcus Carr.
Yeah, and if you're gonna play bad, and come up in the big moments, then you can just be like, all right, we'll get him next game. Like, it'll be all right. So I think the guards are gonna play better. Like, we talked about it before the show a little bit, and I'll pull the box back up, and I can't remember exactly what it was. But between Carr, Tyrese Hunter, and Serge Rice, they were combined 1 for 11 from 3 and still won by 5 in the round of 32. They weren't playing a bad team.
No, Penn State was gritty. And all that.
No, and people keep doing, well, they're a 10 seed, barely got in the tournament. It's like, nah, man. If you've been watching ball for the last couple months, then you knew what that team was.
Penn State? No, yeah, that's a team.
That team was a 10, masquerading as about a 5.
Yeah, no, that team, Penn State's they're definitely better than a 10 than a 10 seed. That's for sure.
10 masquerading as like a 5.
6, 5, 6 seed for sure. Like that's a good team they beat.
Yeah, and when you can do it playing your C- game, that's why I was like, man.
Do you think Mackay stays Penn State? Or does he entertain Georgetown?
Because
I think Georgetown's going to be on the top of their list.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I think really it's going to take a second. Like, I think
he's only a second year at Penn State, and this is just
but they're also waiting on Cooley, I think. And so Cooley's got to make a decision.
And a lot of people had some vibes about his press conference. I didn't watch it, but I Feel 68, they were talking about it. They were like, yeah, there was some weird energy. Like, he was getting asked questions about it. And so Ed Cooley could be someone that could
there's been weird energy around them for weeks. And this is why I couldn't pick them to beat Kentucky. Like, he walked off the floor after their road win at Georgetown with the Georgetown fans chanting at his players, "We want Cooley." Like, this has been an energy for weeks that he hasn't addressed, and you could argue that it's why they got eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think they're going to wait on Cooley. It's not been a secret. Like, I think they're going to wait, and if they can get Ed, they'll take Ed. But if not, man, I think Shrewsbury's the next call, and I think it's the right call. Because just the way he has built things at Penn State, like, they're going to win. I don't know if Penn State's going to make a very lucrative offer to him. Is what someone reported that.
They have to.
Yeah, but and it was a long-term financial commitment, not only to him but the program. And if that's the case, then why? Like, why go to Georgetown? Like,
yeah, because Georgetown. I think because they're in the DMV area, so they can get the talent. But I don't know if people look at Georgetown the way like old heads look at Georgetown. Like, I think,
man, like, if you're in the Big Ten,
reminds me of Nebraska. Like, Nebraska football, like, it's not the same. Yeah. Like, people don't view Nebraska the same way.
And also, like, if you're in the Big Ten and you can sell, like, hey man, like, we won a tournament game last year, like, you've already done it, like, and you can prove like his play style is a good one, like. you've already kind of proven that you can do it there. Like now it's just about upgrading the roster to where next year you're a single digit
He
seed.
did it at Penn State. This isn't a basketball, factory. Like this is Penn
No.
State. They don't go to the tournament like that. Like
No, but it's a conversation where like basketball is an easy sport to get relevant in because all you have to do is find some players, and if you can just win that first tournament game and get in or whatever, then it's like we're talking about, and I'll make the comparison because it's easy for me. It's like we talk about here at Ole Miss. Like, Ole Miss has no history in basketball, and any history they have is bad, pretty much. There's no hoopers. The only player they have in the NBA is coming off the bench for the Kings. Like, that's no history. But when you hire someone like a Shrewsbury, or in our case, a Chris Beard, like, all it's going to take is 1 year of building that roster and being relevant and, winning a tournament game or 2 tournament games. And all of a sudden you're just like, well, damn, like all it takes is 1 year where then portal guys or recruits are like, damn.
And that's the portal now. The portal now is another thing too.
Well, and then it's like, but I can go there and I can get to the same place I can get to if I'm going to Kentucky, and I'm going to get more looks if I go here. Like, like the pluses and the money is going to flow everywhere. Like the NIL is going to be whatever it's going to be. Like, like we were talking about the other night here, like Chris Beard's never lost a first round tournament game ever, anywhere. He didn't even lose one at damn Little Rock. And so, and all this to tie back, like not to spin off on the Beard Ole Miss stuff, but like all this to tie back to Shrewsbury. It's like, if you can do it at Penn State, which you've now shown that you can, and you can get the players to do it, why go to Georgetown and reset? Even you could argue that it's easier to win in the Big Ten than the Big East. Like, just because, like, hey, like I've got to battle Izzo, but like after that, man, like that second spot in the league is for the taking. Like, and I've got to battle Purdue, but like I can go get Purdue. Like they're gettable every year. Like,
and then expectations too at Georgetown is going to be crazy.
Expectations at Penn State are basically nothing.
Yeah, what he's doing now is good, and they're fine with that. You go to Georgetown, and they want, they're gonna want you to be turn it around and all that. And even though it won't be that hard to turn it around because they were just so god awful. Like,
dude, Boom, Sule Boom is absolutely hooping.
Yeah, he's good.
You think? Do you think Rodney Terry has like tricks up the sleeve, like with that? Because he has the inside. We're gonna have Rodney Terry coaching against his former player in the next round.
That's gonna be interesting.
Does he have like the advanced scouting report from his days at UTEP? Does he have the weakness list?
That's gonna be interesting to see.
This
is gonna be a big coaching. This is big for him.
Yeah, he better have it, because if he doesn't, Rodney, I'm gonna drive to Austin and be like, Rodney, I just want to talk.
Yeah, this is big for him because he's probably not gonna be at Texas next year unless he wins a championship. So he's gonna be looking for a new job, whether it's being an assistant somewhere or maybe
I've heard
there's
mid-majors. I've heard there's a bunch of mid-majors that are kind of waiting on him to.
I could see him getting a mid-major head coaching job.
I think so. I think there's some teams that are ready to take a shot on him. But yeah, it is interesting. I think Texas should be able to score in that game. Xavier is not very good defensively. Typical Sean Miller.
Sean Miller teams playing defenses? Nah, you don't say.
Typical, but Texas should be able to score. It should be a pretty good matchup again for Dessou. It's going to be a really bad matchup for Nunji, because he's going to have to be out in space all night, and that's not really good for the 7-footer there.
Kobe Jones is going to be big.
Yeah,
he's been so good this year. Kobe.
I do you think Xavier's size on the wings maybe gives?
They got some big wings. They have some big wings. Kobe 6'6", 6'7".
Yeah, and I think that maybe like Texas obviously not lacking for 6'7" guys, but I do think like when you have like a Carr, a Serge Abari Rice, a Tyrese Hunter, like you could probably throw some wings on those guys and maybe potentially make things tough.
Xavier's got some big dudes though.
They do. They've got some big dudes. I do worry about them though with the way Texas runs their offense. I worry about them getting pulled out into space and getting into trouble. Because if they get pulled out into space, they're not exactly the problem with Xavier's big wings and their big guys is they're not the most fleet of foot. Like they don't really move. They don't move very well. And so,
of course, yeah.
You do
but they can hit the three though. They can hit the three, so that could be trouble if they get up.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, but
because if you get up on Texas, you may be able to, especially with their size, to hold it down.
We've now seen Colgate can shoot the three. Penn State can shoot the three, and Texas came in and said, we are not going to let you do that.
Yeah.
You're not going to let you do it. You are going to drive, you're going to take tough twos, and you're going to beat us taking tough twos. And to this, and this is why, you have to beat Texas taking tough twos.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think Texas's ball pressure defensively is going to give Xavier some issues because I think outside of Boom, I don't think Kunkel doesn't like it when people get up in his grill.
No.
And I don't think any of the other, and Colby Jones even really doesn't like it when people get up in his grill. I think Boom is really the only ball handler that you feel good about in that one. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It'll be like that line's only going to be like a 2.5, 3-point type line.
He keeps getting better and better. Boom.
Yeah, he does.
I know he's been at a few schools, but he's everywhere he goes. He's pretty good. He's been pretty good.
Yeah,
he's been pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess really the only thing we before we have to talk about Memphis.
All right, yeah. Go.
Listen,
say what you got to say about it.
Listen, man, if you watch the last 12 minutes of that game, and I don't want to hear the ref stuff, I really don't want to hear it.
Nah.
I don't want to hear it. That's not where the game got lost. Game got lost because Penny completely bungled the last 12 minutes of that game. He had no feel. How does your team come out up 1 with no idea how to break the press with 30 seconds left? How do they have no idea? They gave Kendrick Davis the ball. He gets trapped, and there's nobody there to help to where he's got a Clark in the middle of the floor, and it turns into a turnover. That team was completely ill-prepared to handle the end of the game. Completely ill-prepared.
You're right. You're definitely right on that.
No, and then they get into the end of the game, and Kendrick gets hurt. Obviously, that's that's not Penny's fault. It's not Penny's fault that Kendrick rolled his ankle. But then, how is the answer after that? Hey, man, I know that my end of game offense isn't going to be there because Kendrick's out. Because all Penny does at the end of games is puts Kendrick in high pick and rolls and is like, let my players work. That's all we're going to do.
Yeah, he gives them a lot of freedom. Yeah,
that's right. And so because Kendrick goes out, how the hell are you going to hand the ball to Alex Lomax and give him the same freedom?
No,
it's one tournament win in 6 years, man. And when he gets into these big games where the only really high quality team we have seen him coach well against is Houston, and he does it every year. Houston, he has, for whatever reason, he's got a little bit of a something on Sampson. He gives them problems. But
all 3 games this year were.
I know, every single time I've bet Memphis every single time they played Houston, I'm 9-1. And so it's something about that matchup. But every other matchup he's had trouble with, unless they can just out athlete you. They're in trouble because they're not disciplined. They're not prepared. They play solid defense, but then when it comes down to crunch time, when the game slows down and you have to execute high quality stuff and win a basketball game, they can't do it.
Had to rely on a 26-year-old.
No, and that's the thing is all of your players have so much game experience.
Yeah,
they should have won that game. They were playing a team who had
never should have won it based off just a little bit more experience.
No, they were playing a team who had never been there before, and a coach who was 32 years old and had never been there before.
Yeah, no, you're right on this game. It just
and FAU had their worst shooting night of the season
because they were down early. Memphis, they come back.
Memphis is up 4 at the half.
Or that right, they were down 10 at one point, but they came back. But yeah, it just other than Kendrick, just the reliance on Kendrick too.
It's just that's what listen, he's gonna get players again. He's a great recruiter. And he's going to have players, and that's going to attract us to his teams because they're going to have high-quality players that can play really good basketball. They're great prospects. I mean, they've got a great recruiting class coming in. But when it comes time to win,
he's got to get some because a lot of his guys are senior. He's going to have a legit young team.
Yeah, Eddie Lampkin's visiting there. They'll be good on the offensive glass again.
They can get Lampkin that because they got their whole team seniors.
I know, and you've got the 3 freshmen coming in. They'll get portal guys. I'm not worried about
get portal guys.
I'm not. Memphis will get basketball.
But he has to get the right portal. You just can't get guys from the portal. You got to get guys who are going to fit because you got some personalities coming in
they have to be able to shoot the basketball. That's the other thing too. Is outside.
I want to see how he handles Mikey.
Yeah,
I want to see how he handles it because Mikey's not just any other prospect. He's a different.
But we were talking about now, I'm not saying he should be fired this year, but man, we're having conversations next year. You've got another recruiting
No,
class,
I'm with you on that. I'm with
class,
you.
like,
Next year is a real conversation.
because at this point he's
How
won
he
one
handles the talent.
game in 6 years, and at Memphis,
He should have won this one, right?
and listen, and I'll tell you
But that's
what,
coaching. No, his coaching definitely needs to come
John
into.
Calipari did him no favors because we've now seen you can win games at Memphis. Like you can go the distance at Memphis, and like I get why they hate Cal or whatever, but like
Yeah.
I mean they've shown that
Did
you
they
can
get that year vacated?
yeah, they did.
Yeah, which is stupid.
I think so. I think Cal gets something vacated
I think everywhere. UMass is vacated.
everywhere but Kentucky. Which that's part of the benefit of being at Kentucky, right? Then Cleveland State just gets another year of probation. But anyway, yeah, like that's the thing, man. Like it's 1 in 6 years, and I don't know how if you're like even if you're a fan, like I don't know how much confidence you have going into games. No, like, and I'll tell you what, give Dusty some credit, man. That end of game set
No,
there, that end of game set there, that marker work was something. That was
he
that was
coached a
scouting
good.
report. That was scouting report marker work to a T because he knew Memphis was going to close hard on shooters, so he got his best shooter in the corner wide open and said, "Pump fake and go by him." And he went by him, and they got a wide open layup to win the game.
No, it was. He's coached. He's had a tremendous season.
And then also, and listen, this is nitpicking because I don't like the guy, but like that goes in or whatever, or the layup goes in or whatever, and then Memphis has no idea what to do. Like doesn't even get a shot off, doesn't even get a heave off.
Yeah.
And that's just like completely being ill prepared. Like I'm a firm, but like we practiced it even in high school. Like, you know, I'm a firm believer in you have to be prepared to like run the
situation.
to run. Like you have to be prepared for those situations. They weren't even close to getting the shot off. Like Lomax threw the shot off like a second after the clock had gone off, and it still got blocked.
Yeah, no. Like I've been a big
don't
Penny
let
guy,
that take away from FAU.
No, yeah, FAU. We got to give credit to FAU, especially.
And I think everybody thought they were a cute 3-point shooting team, and that was a gritty effort when they won shots were not going in. They really battled. I thought Golden did a great job in space. Like I thought he moved his feet and was not unplayable, which a lot of times those European 7-footers, that's what you worry about.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he did a good job. He really battled on the glass against Memphis's athletes. Like he really like Dandridge was a non-factor. And then also, you know, and DeAndre Williams is what he is. He's just a monster. DeAndre Williams did a great job when Penny put him back in with 4 fouls with like 17 minutes left. And also, I'll give Penny credit for this. That was a good call. Like you have to play your guys at that point. And if he fouls out,
you got to trust them. You got to trust them to be smart in that situation.
Yep. And that's what, and that's why too. I hate pulling dudes out with 2 in the first half because, you know, what does foul trouble matter if you're down 15 in the second half?
Exactly, because you can be like you just said, you could be down 15, 20 points, and it's like, all right, well,
like all right, cool.
Like, just let him in there and like we'll figure it out if he gets fouled out with 5 minutes left, and but at least we're in the ball game.
Yeah, like if you know, would you rather have your guy with fouls left down 15, or would you rather be up 10 and like he fouls out and we'll just figure it out? I'd rather have to be up 10. Like
exactly.
And DeAndre Williams is that type of player that can cause that kind of swing, like that type of like radical point differential. I thought he did a good job handling that, but like other than that, and like the whole timeout thing, like man, like there was a scrum of dudes on the floor, like that ref was never giving you a timeout there.
Mm-hmm.
Never. He can't even see because he can't even see the basketball. Like he can't even see the ball. So he doesn't know who has the ball. Like he doesn't like you can't grant that timeout. You just can't. Like you can't. Especially not too that you because you could argue like and I've seen like the FAU counterpoint. It's like, well, Jonell Davis doesn't even go down if Kendrick Davis doesn't make arm contact. Like if he because Kendrick kind of walled up with his arms, that's a block. And the refs didn't call it. And then Jonell slips. And it's like, well, if you don't call the foul, you can't give Memphis the timeout after they caused FAU to fall. Because then FAU is like, well, man, what the hell?
Yeah.
So I thought the jump ball was the right call. If it had been – because then if it's Memphis ball, it's like, okay, like whatever. But, you know, I'll tell you this too, and you want to talk about a team that's well prepared. FAU dove for a loose ball earlier in the game, like got it. Guy immediately called timeout because he knew they had the possession arrow. And so he called timeout, and he was like, "That could matter." And he's
That's
like,
an underrated thing to like
"Yeah,
know the turnover
yeah."
error.
Because, man, like, it's these teams late in these tournaments that are prepared to win basketball
That's
games.
who wins. That's who wins.
It
The little
literally won
things. The
them
little
it
things.
literally won them the game. He dives on the floor, calls timeout because they have the possession arrow, and knows that with 4 minutes left, hey, man, like, that possession arrow can matter. That it's details, and Memphis doesn't do that. They
Especially
just
in
don't.
college basketball with all the little the rules and all that. Like the
Yes.
little things are why we see upsets.
It's
We
why
see
and
so
it's
many
why
upsets.
in these 8-9 games and even 7-10s or whatever, in crunch time, the team who is more prepared and is better coached often wins these games because they don't make mistakes down the stretch. It is very often not who wins the game, but who loses it. And, like, Memphis lost it by making mistakes.
No, because Memphis should have won this game.
They should have. They were the better basketball team,
They
but
were
they
a
were
better
not.
team.
They were more talented, and they lost because they were less prepared.
Oh yeah.
You know? Everything went right for Memphis too, really, when you think about it. Like, I think FAU was like 4 for 18 from 3 at one
Yeah.
point.
No, they
Like,
struggled. They didn't.
could not buy a shot from deep. Like, Nick Boyd couldn't hit anything. Jonell didn't hit threes until the end there, where he hit 2 back to back, and then that was it. Forrest didn't give him anything. Like, everything went right for Memphis, and they still lost the game. And that's just kind of how, like, there's only really one person you can look at after that.
Yep, and there's gonna be. We're gonna
And then he
see
threw the water ball in the crowd. I hope whoever he hit was okay.
Oh yeah, he threw the water bottle. Yeah. His emotions, But there's gonna be a big year for him next year. All right, so one last thing before we head out. Patino, St. John's.
Yeah.
How we feel about that? How we feel about that move?
That feels so right.
I've been saying that St. John's.
Right,
I've been saying that he needs to be. I've said it on the show.
Well, like,
I think
it's the
he needs to be player
Italian
number one for St.
I think
John's.
it's the Italian New York type just vibe that it's gonna have to it.
They need a New York. That's the one job where I feel like you need someone who is the city.
Yeah.
Right. You can get other jobs where you can, if you're Texas, you can get someone who's out of there or California. Yeah. But for St. John's, you need some. Like they tried that with Chris Mullen, it didn't work because he half-assed the job. Let's be real. He half-assed that. He wanted to be a part-time head coach.
Yeah.
And they needed a guy who knows the city, who's from there, understands what this needs to be. But also they need St. John's to change a lot of their stuff because they get in they get in their own way a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I'm St. John's, I'm like, it has to be Patino.
Yeah.
No other coach. You can get another coach that's some New York. No. It has to be Patino, and you need to change your ways and all. They had to have told him we're going to change this and all this, and we're going to give you what you want. We're going to give you the keys because there was a lot of people talking. It's like that's not a good job, and St. John's hasn't really been a good job. Let's be real, and it's in New York, but it hasn't been a good job because they get in their own ways. But they must have told him, hey, we're going to upgrade a lot of stuff. We're going to give you. And we're going to give you money so you can get the players that are leaving New York to go to Carolina and all these down south so they can come here.
You'll be a factor in the DMV or whatever. Like
yeah. You can go to DMV and Sola, like especially in New York. The New York has definitely got a boost back in talent, especially high level talent. So you don't want those kids leaving. And if Patino's there and they got money and all that, and it could be moved. So I think
that, if that Blake Henson 3 had gone, we probably would have been looking like Xavier. Probably would have been a little nervy.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think the Patino thing, it makes so much sense. God, Blake Henson is such a bad shot taker. But yeah, I mean, it just makes so much sense. It feels right. And he was getting hoopers at Iona, man. Like he had dudes there that could actually play.
They had some players. Yeah, they got legit players.
And so I think he'll get players at St. John's. And I think too, with conference realignment and stuff, I think the way this is going, I really think we're going to see some version. I think we're going to see some version of the old Big East come back together. Like I think Pitt may go back to the Big East. I think some of those other schools that were in it before that are in the ACC now, like Syracuse, maybe. Boston College,
Miami.
No, Miami won't.
I think Miami fills ACC.
Yeah, I think Miami will either stay in the ACC or look elsewhere.
Well, then I think they're tied with Florida State. I think they're gonna
Maybe.
figure out what Florida. You don't want to lose that rivalry, especially for football.
Yeah, it's a big. I don't know, but I do think that some semblance of the old Big East could come back together, where then you get like a more like a UConn Pitt game or whatever. The Pitt Xavier games comes back.
Mm-hmm.
It does suck that maybe we couldn't get West Virginia in there, but
West Virginia.
they won't. I don't think they'll do it.
Big 12 can't lose them. They're already losing a bunch of schools.
Yeah.
Well, so
yeah. Well, and the Big 12 is about to, I think, rip like 3 or 4 schools out of the Pac-12. But
they're getting Houston, right? Aren't they getting Houston?
They've got Houston and UCF will be in there next year, along with Cincinnati.
That's big. That's
and
big.
BYU. That's a tough basketball league for BYU now.
Yeah, now they got to get better athletes now.
Well, yeah, they just don't have the athletes to hang there. And then, but I'll tell you what, man, that's a coach I'd keep an eye on maybe this offseason, knowing that they're moving, because I think Mark Pope is really highly thought of in the coaching community. Like, I think he's really, really good. He's been a candidate for a lot of jobs. Wouldn't be surprised if he took like a weird job just to get away from like the requirements for recruits at BYU. Like, just took
because that's gonna be interesting. You said that with BYU, because that's a tough job to get recruits.
Yeah,
so
it is. And so I think,
especially with the whole Mormon and all that stuff,
yeah. And so I think that I think that's one of those things maybe, but yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see really kind of where all this goes, because a lot of it could change before next season, really. But yeah. Also, who you got TCU Gonzaga tonight?
I'm gonna ride with my guy Mike.
You know who I'm riding.
Ride with Mike. I'm gonna ride with my guy Mike.
Yeah, I agree.
I just trust him. Like they've had a lot of stuff going on, like off the court too, and it just feels like they just always figure it out, and he has them. And
yep. Also not talked about enough.
Big game player.
Yeah, and also not talked about at all. Like, people talked about Mike willing that team to a victory last night. Like, Damian Ball made big shots.
They need Ball to step up too.
Dude, he hit the corner three, and then he hit the 2 free throws that kind of put him up and put it away. Like, that put him up. I guess it was I think he put him up 2. Maybe, I'm not sure. I can't remember. But because then
Ball, Miles, and Miller need to. They got to cook. They got to cook.
Well, and but then he went to the line. Like, Mike went to the line and missed the front end. Like, the game never gets tied. They don't have to hit a buzzer beater if Mike just makes both free throws. I'm not nitpicking. Like, we're in the second round.
Yeah.
But like, Ball doesn't get enough credit for what he's contributed to that roster. But I'll tell you this: Gonzaga's got no rim protection, and they will let you run in transition. So good luck to Gonzaga, because there is no transition team I'd rather have in the country than TCU.
Yeah. Gonzaga's in these straws to keep Ball and all that, because he's been
and again, though, they can't give up as high quality shots as they did to Grand Canyon. We talked about this before. Like, they lost the shot quality score to Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon just didn't have good enough players. Yeah. Also, that's another one too that I think should get a job again soon. Bryce Drew is at Vandy, but like, Bryce Drew's a good basketball coach.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, he's getting they've got dudes playing ball. Like, he won the WAC. He kind of was running into a buzzsaw every year in the WAC for a little while with Jens at New Mexico State. But now I think it's kind of his. I think it may kind of be his league.
You got an online school competing against Gonzaga. Like, that's what Grand Canyon's been known for, is being an online school. And
he covered. He's
been good there since he's been there.
He covered the spread against Gonzaga. Like, he kept it closer than the experts thought. Like, I mean, they played with them for pretty much 30-ish minutes, and then
Vandy's a tough job. Like, I know Stackhouse has had some success this year, but that's a tough gig.
It is, and that's why I think that Bryce Drew deserves another shot at like a normal school, a normal job.
Yeah. I think him just like losing every game in the SEC his last year.
I know, and I think it leaves like a weird thing, but I think that there's definitely a case. There's definitely a case or whatever that was a Vandy problem, not a Bryce Drew problem. Because Bryce Drew got dudes at that school. Had Darius Garland not gotten hurt, we were going to get Scottie Pippen Jr. and Garland in the backcourt, and that team would have
been his ACL, right? Garland that year.
Yeah,
blew out his
knee. They had
got Garland to go to Vandy. Garland,
I know, and then they had their boy. They had our boy Dylan Dessou in the front court.
Yeah, They got some
They were
guys.
gonna be good. They were gonna be
He's a
really
good coach.
good.
He was good at Valparaiso. Like he's
Yes, stuff just didn't break his way at Vandy. I think that's a guy who probably deserves another shot.
yeah. And you can't blame him from taking, obviously going for Valparaiso. You're gonna take an SEC job. Like let's just be real. Like even if it is Vanderbilt, you're gonna take the job. But that's a tough gig. He
Yeah.
only got 3 years there too. I know his last year was a disaster, but because they made the tournament though, right? They made the tournament.
Vandy
in his time there.
You know what? I think they did because you remember what happened. They had Matthew Fisher Davis foul that Northwestern cat up 1. You remember that in the 8-9 game?
I'm trying to remember.
Vandy scored to go up.
All right,
1.
they were the 9 seed. Okay, I remember.
And Matthew Fisher Davis forgot to score like a J.R. Smith thing, and he fouled a guy with like 14 seconds left.
I gotta watch that game. I just remember that what happened
because Northwestern was down 1, was coming down for the last shot, was going to try to win it, and Matthew Fisher Davis just forgot to score and intentionally fouled him. Down 1, and Northwestern made 2 free throws. And
how'd they get into? Because they were 9. Did they go deep in the SEC tournament?
Something like that. They were good. They
had to, yeah.
They were good that year. 19-6. They may have gone like 12-6 in the SEC. Like I think they were good that year.
Yeah,
Fisher Davis was a hooper. He wasn't a pro guy, but he was a good college player. Yeah, and they hadn't really been good before that year. They hadn't really been good since Kevin Stallings had like John Jenkins and those guys.
And 18 is when they had Garland, right?
Yeah,
they had Garland, but he got hurt, right?
Yeah, he played like 1 game. Like
he blew out his knee, right?
He had a Kyrie Irving career, like
I remember that because he was such a. Him coming out, people were like, why is he going top 5? He played for a bad. It was like the Ben Simmons, Kyrie's Ben Simmons playing for a bad team and all that. Yeah. Why is he going so high and all that? But
and because when Kevin Stallings was at Vandy, if you want the throwback, they had, I think it was John Jenkins, and then there was one other guy that was the pro on that roster. He wore number 44. I can't remember what his name was. But they had some shooters on that squad, and they were good. They were deep. They went to the tourney. They got put out of the SEC tournament that year by Ole Miss, who had Marshall Henderson, and they went on and won that SEC tournament. Ole Miss went on and beat
Henderson. I was watching something on Marshall Henderson a few months back.
Yeah, he Ole Miss went on and won that. Ole Miss went on and won that SEC tournament, and then went and played.
You guys have had some bad boys in that school. Football and basketball.
Dude, that squad had
wild characters.
That Ole Miss team had hoopers, man. Between Marshall and then like Ladarius Wyatt was on that team, and then Jarvis Summers, who was from Jackson.
Summers, okay, I remember Jarvis Summers.
Murphy Holloway, that went on to play in the NFL.
Murphy Holloway. Oh yeah, you did have some guys on that.
And team. Then Reginald Buckner, who was a 5-star, and he still holds the blocks record at Ole Miss. Like they had some players on that team, and then they had some European guys coming off the bench. They went on and beat that Wisconsin team in the tournament that was basically a year ahead of schedule. They had Sam Decker and Frank Kaminsky and all those guys, but they were all freshmen.
Oh, they were babies. Yeah, that was why
they were babies, and so Ole Miss beat them in the first round, and then went on and got upset by LaSalle in the second round. LaSalle beat Ole Miss in a 13-12 matchup. If Ole Miss had beat LaSalle there, it would have been the Walker Bailey versus Mo Murphy Bowl before we even knew who each other were. Ole Miss played 2-seed Ohio State in the next round, and who knows at that point. But Ole Miss had hoopers that year. Hadn't been like that ever since.
Yeah.
Well, Stephon Moody was a hooper. I'll give him that. Moody was a hooper. Moody was one of my favorites.
We got the guy that can possibly get you back there, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens and with Ole Miss and all that. But
I loved Moody, man. That was my guy.
That's going to conclude. We got some games. Xavier is going to be moving on to the next round.
Kentucky K-State in 20 minutes.
We got Kentucky K-State. We got some good matchups.
You got Kentucky or K-State.
That's a close one, man.
I think
you can't let Oscar get 20,000 rebounds, 29 rebounds.
I think the Wildcats.
But I trust Keontae. I love the story. Rooting for him, so I'm gonna go with K-State.
I think the Wildcats will win. One of them for sure.
The Wildcat will win. That's for sure.
But I'll say this: I got Kentucky. I think the glass is too much. I think Kansas State turns the ball over too much. I just think when you get in a toss-up game, if you're not going to win the glass and you're going to turn the ball over a lot, it's hard to win. So I got Kentucky.
Yeah, because it really is it's essentially a pick 'em
And their turnover rate, Kansas State's is one of the worst in the country. They're really.
My heart says Kansas State, my gut says Kentucky, but I'm going to stick with K-State.
Yeah, I got Kentucky, and then I got Kentucky beating whoever wins the
Deontay Johnson has a good game.
Actually, you know what?
Let's go. Tomlin is someone I'm starting to really, really like more and more, especially like as a pro. I think he can be a nice player at the pro level. So
we'll close the show with it. I will announce it right here. John Calipari is going back to the Final Four for the first time since 2015. Right here. That's a statement. It is a fact. It is going to happen. Clip it, tweet it, save it. They're going back to the Final
Four. I think he likes it. I think he rather it this way, where his teams are under the radar. Everyone's doubting them, and it seems like he works better that way. But then when he's
a hungry dog just runs faster, and that's with Rick and John in that region. I promise you, they are hungrier than every other team in that
Everybody region. Talked about with Bryce Hopkins and Providence. What if he goes off on them? Blah, blah, blah. And they took that personal.
And Bryce Hopkins is crying after the game, and he goes up and gives him the hug and is like, yeah, nice try, kid. Go home.
Yeah. Right. That was the only storyline anyone talked about. All that.
And everybody picked Providence, and I'm just telling you, man, like those two coaches have heard it now for years. They were trying to fire Cal earlier in the year, like the fans were. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Hungry dogs run faster in March, and you saw it with Tennessee yesterday. The edge they carried. We've seen it with how Kentucky's carried their edge. That edge is going to get those two teams into a matchup with each other. And for whatever reason, Kentucky just always beats Tennessee. So I'm rolling with the Cats. Final Four.
Cats will win. How many teams in your Final Four that you still have in? I have three.
Three.
Texas, Bama, and Arkansas still in it.
I've got. See, and the problem is when I filled out the bracket, I didn't feel like I feel now. So I've got in my bracket Marquette in the Final Four, but I feel like they get beat today. Maybe I'm just a pud, and I just think my teams are always going to lose. But I've got three left. So my Final Four coming in was Kansas, Houston, Creighton, Kansas, Houston, Creighton, and Marquette. And
in the Final Four.
I feel pretty great. I feel pretty great about Creighton and Houston. Actually, I don't even feel great about Houston. I don't really feel great about any of them, to be honest. And honestly, San Diego State scares me if I'm Creighton. Like that team, a team that can defend the three, like that scares me. And Brian Dutcher is always the man with the defend.
Oh yeah. So that's gonna be interesting. But that's gonna conclude the show. Maybe we'll do some after tonight. We'll figure it out.
I'm all day, so I'll probably I got some stuff to do, but
we'll figure that out. But appreciate everyone who tuned in and all that. A lot of great college basketball on the slate today. That's Walker. I'm Chris. Peace out, guys.